I'm gonna give a review today. Not a review, a rant video that's been due for a while that I've felt needs to be said. Remember, these rant videos are my opinions and my views. Don't get butthurt about my opinions and views. Emo bands versus back then to today. Emo bands back then weren't really emo bands. I think they're a lot better back then. I'll give my reasons. I'm a musician myself, and I've been doing it for a little while now, and I can tell the difference between musical, like, just work doing. Like, I'll give an example. Back then, the considered emo bands were Hawthorne Heights, Taking Back Sunday, Seosin, Silverstein, Senses Fail was one of them, Brand New, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, The Used, My Chemical Romance. Bands that were at least able to get somewhere more than just a show at Warped Tour. And they also did more. That's the thing. Those kind of bands today, there's only two bands that made it out of that. A Day to Remember is famous, but they never got as famous as Taking Back Sunday did back then yet, and I hope A Day to Remember does, because they deserve it, and Falling in Reverse already kind of has. But those are the two bands that really deserve it. But what makes me mad about today's music, not music, I won't rant that ever, because I'm not going to rant about that, but today's emo music is consisted of screaming. That's all they look at when they try to emphasize emotion, is screaming and heavy guitar that they consider metal by tuning at the drop C, over palm muting, and if they do guitars, it's it's like stuff like that. Like the open stringing, the drop C guitar. That's all they do now. Back in the day, they actually did more than one main guitar part, did some melody, and then instead of they didn't have to use screaming to emphasize emotion. Like if you listen to Taking Back Sunday ever, they didn't really scream. They just got kind of hard with their vocals. Same with The Used. They screamed a bit, but mixed it up better, except for scream. Because all they do today is they'll scream for a whole verse or sing for a whole verse, and same vice versa with the chorus. Back then they can mix it word for word. The vocals didn't all sound the same. When you hear emo bands, most of them today, the ones that aren't famous, like their vocals sound exactly the same. It's the same young kid sounding voice now. Like Asking Alexandria and Of Mice and Men, basically the same band. I'm sorry. I think Asking Alexandria has potential. Black Veil Brides and A Day to Remember and Falling in Reverse do so well because they're unique. They do their own thing. A lot of these emo imitation bands are annoying, and back then it wasn't skinny jean wearing. It's not about that. They've made it more about the look now, and it pisses me off. And they over. It's just music is more than music. Isn't something you don't, when you make music, you don't imitate people. You do your own thing. You be you. You write about your life experiences or whatever you want to write about. I write about life experiences. That might not be you. You might like writing songs about fucking tacos or something because that feels right to you. That's your choice. Feels right to me is writing about personal experiences. And also, back then, those bands, you can tell they did better because Taking Back Sunday at least had an album that went gold and they got big, and a lot of people know their song Make Damn Sure, and people will remember that song 20 years from now. Same with Face Down or Ohio is for Lovers, because those were at least big enough to do that. They weren't huge back then, but they had their big moments. In 20 years, people aren't really going to remember bands like Pierce the Veil or Sleeping with Sirens or Asking Alexandria. I'm sorry. I don't know why people are so obsessed with over high vocals anymore either. That's the only rock that's popular is emo. And back then, hardcore was just more, just making your voice a little raunchy and actually singing about, like Blue and Yellow by The Used. That was considered emo. Listen to it. he sings softly through the whole song and inquires. Okay, Seosin, they were popular once. They use a lot of different guitar techniques. There's literally almost two lead guitars going at the same time, and a lot of harmonics and symphonies going. And there's not even really any screaming, really. And they're an alternative band, and they can show emotion without screaming, because they have a whole album that does it. And bands these days, they think to show emotion they gotta scream and stuff. That's so stupid. And with the same guitar, no, that's riff work throughout a whole song. I'll give you my overview of bands today. Emo bands back then were just a lot better. I'm sorry, but there's emo bands like today. I enjoy Falling in Reverse. They did a good job. Day to Remember does too. They do some pretty good guitar. It's a little simple, but I can tell that's their choice, and they have more guitar skill than they're showing. But it's just maybe they don't feel it's right for their songs to show that much skill, and they have some kind of hard stuff. But bands like Pierce the Veil and Sleeping with Sirens, they sound a lot alike. Sleeping with Sirens is just a super high voice. Same with them. That's why they're popular, is because they have super high voices. Or like popular in their own little emo scene. And Asking Alexandria has been around a little longer. That's why they've been able to break out of that a little bit. But they like A Day to Remember and Asking Alexandria got to play at Rock am Ring, so they're doing pretty good. And Black Veil Brides has done the same. They've been doing good for themselves. Falling in Reverse is still climbing up. Those kind of bands, though, they're not going to get that popular anymore. Back then they did. But now they've made themselves so into just screaming and thinking that's important for every song. They're not going to get much places. And I believe that all those emo bands today actually have more potential than they're showing, especially Asking Alexandria. Like, I don't hate any of the bands today. I do hate some of them in emo bands, but they just show lack of guitar, like trying to do something different ever. Because like back then there was something different for every album. You didn't know what to expect, whether it was going to be a little bit of poppy for emo, a little bit of punk mixed in. No, it's basically ruined. Just emo music has been ruined by just kids thinking it's all about skinny jeans and gauging your ears. I mean, if you do that, that's fine, but I'm just saying people make that music more about looks anymore. Like, say, the way things are now, imagine a kid. He's ugly. Well, no, he's not ugly. Just imagine a kid who's full of talent, but doesn't look anything special. Not ugly, not hot, just kind of in the middle. He's great. And he's better than this other emo kid who dresses in skinny jeans. Now, the emo kid's not bad, just a little mediocre. Chances are the emo kid's going to do a lot better than the kid who looks average because he's emo looking, and his looks can contribute to at least his little mediocre skill. That's how it is today. I don't like it. I don't know how it got that way. And I'm not saying there's good bands today. I personally believe Sleeping with Sirens and Pierce the Veil are good bands. Those are the negatives about bands like that. It's all the same shit now. Well, thank you for hearing my rant.